Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a really significant document.
We are indeed.
It's Gaudium et Spes, the Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World. Came out in December 1965.
Right. Joys and Hopes in Latin, a key piece from the Second Vatican Council.
Exactly. That was that huge transformative gathering, wasn't it? Aimed at looking again at the Church's role, how it engaged with, well, a world changing really fast.
It really was. And you can think of this document as sort of a blueprint for how the Church saw its place, its interaction with modern society.
What's amazing, though, and you pointed this out before, is who it's talking to.
Yes. That's quite remarkable. It's, comes from the Catholic tradition, obviously. But it says right there it's addressing the whole of humanity, not just Catholics.
That's ambitious.
It is. The goal was to explain the Church's view on its own presence and activity in the world at that time. So it becomes this lens, really, for looking at universal human challenges, our hopes, our fears.
Yeah, that focus on the human experience, it feels central. It wants to connect with the joys and the hopes, the griefs and the anxieties of the men of this age. That's the quote, isn't it?
Precisely.
So let's explore how this historical text tackled these big, enduring questions. Society, culture, what it means to be human, questions we're still asking today.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Scrutinizing the signs of the times, the modern world's paradoxes.
Okay, so first up, Gaudium et Spes says the church needs to scrutinize the signs of the times. What kinds of signs are we talking about back in 65? And do they still, resonate?
Well, that's the striking thing, how much they do resonate. The document talks about a new stage of history, marked by profound and rapid changes.
Sounds familiar.
Doesn't it? And it observes that while our intelligence, our power is growing massively, we don't always, quote, succeed in subjecting it to his own welfare.
The power outstrips the wisdom, maybe.
Something like that. And this gap, this disconnect, that leads to this pervasive feeling of uncertainty. That's what they saw.
And it goes right into these huge paradoxes, things that feel like they could have been written yesterday. It mentions an abundance of wealth, resources, and economic power.
But at the same time, a huge proportion of the world's citizens are still tormented by hunger and poverty.
Right. And countless numbers suffer from total illiteracy. That's a stark contradiction.
It really is. And looking at the bigger picture, these aren't just economic issues.
Yeah.
They're deep societal contradictions.
Yeah.
The document points out, we have this keen understanding of freedom, but
new forms of social and psychological slavery make their appearance. Wow.
yeah. And think about this. A vivid awareness of its unity, the world feeling more connected, yet most grievously torn into opposing camps by conflicting forces. Cold War context, maybe, but still feels relevant.
Totally. It even gets into communication. Says there's a growing exchange of ideas.
But, and this is key, the very words by which key concepts are expressed take on quite different meanings in diverse ideological systems.
It's like talking past each other. We see that online every day.
Exactly. And this search for a better world, but maybe without a corresponding spiritual advancement. That's another tension they identify.
It's quite a diagnosis.
It is. It sees this broad cultural and social transformation happening. And that, of course, affects religion, too. Science, tech, biology, psychology, social sciences, all pushing us from a static concept of reality to a more dynamic, evolutionary one.
And that shift creates problems.
Well, it brings a new series of problems, as the document puts it. New questions, new challenges to old ways of thinking.
So what did all this mean for, traditional communities? Families, villages?
They saw more thorough changes every day there, too. Industrialization, people moving to cities, new media, all impacting family life, local communities.
Right.
It talks about a rise in socialization, which they meant is more connections, more dependencies between people and groups.
Okay.
But it adds a caution.
I know.
This doesn't automatically mean better personal development or truly personal relationships. More connections doesn't always mean deeper connections.
That's insightful. And how did this whole whirlwind affect people's values, their faith?
Well, the document notes these changes often call accepted values into question, particularly among the young, who, it says, have grown impatient and indeed become rebels in their distress.
A generation gap observation, even then.
Seems like it. And it notes that for those who remain religious, faith might become more personal and explicit, more thought through, perhaps.
But there's a but, isn't there?
Yes, but also growing numbers of people are abandoning religion in practice.
Ah.
And it critically observes that sometimes denying God or religion is presented as a sort of requirement of scientific progress or of a certain new humanism.
Hmm. So all these external imbalances, these societal shifts, the document traces them back somewhere deeper. Right?
Gasly, this is a crucial move. It argues the root cause isn't just out there, it's in here, inside us. It points to that more basic imbalance which is rooted in the heart of man.
An internal conflict.
Precisely. It describes this struggle. We feel limited like creatures, but also have these boundless desires. We often do what he would not and fails to do what he would. Sound familiar?
Very. Like Paul in Romans, almost.
Indeed. And this internal split, this division within the human heart, that's what gives rise to so many and such great discords in society. It starts within. 2, the dignity of the human person and the family as foundation.
Okay, so digging into that internal struggle, the document has a lot to say about the human person,
Yeah.
created to the image of God, which, whatever your beliefs suggests this inherent worth, right?
Absolutely. An inherent dignity and purpose.
Yeah.
And it stresses we're social beings. We
Well,
can't really live fully or develop potential without connecting with others. We need community.
but it's not a naive view, is it? It talks about holiness, but also,
Right. It acknowledges that humanity, despite being created in, let's say, a good state, abused his liberty, tempted by, well, the evil one. You can interpret that theologically or psychologically as destructive forces,
need hate.
leading to this inclination towards evil, this constant dramatic struggle between good and evil that plays out in every human life. It's a picture of both grandeur and the depths of misery, highs and lows.
And it tackles the big one, death. The ultimate riddle, as some call it.
It does. It highlights our dread of perpetual extinction and makes the point that technology and of extending biological life, it helps, but it cannot calm his anxiety.
Why not?
Because, it argues, just prolonging biological life doesn't satisfy that deep desire for higher life, for meaning, for something more than just existence.
That ties into the discussion on atheism, doesn't it? How does the document approach people who deny God?
It's interesting. It says atheism isn't usually spontaneous. It stems from a variety of causes.
Like what?
Well, fascinatingly, it actually puts some responsibility on believers themselves. People who neglect their own training in the faith or teach erroneous doctrine or whose lives, religious, moral, social, are lacking. Basically a poor witness.
So the remedy isn't just arguing.
No. It suggests the remedy involves understanding the hidden causes behind atheism, yes, but also a proper presentation of the church's teaching and the integral life of the church and her members. Living the faith authentically is part of the answer.
Okay, let's shift to the family. The document calls it the foundation of society.
And a school of deeper humanity.
Oh.
It really elevates the family unit.
Why is it so central?
It argues that the well-being of individuals and of society as a whole is just intimately linked with the health of marriage and family life. They see it as absolutely crucial.
And how does it define marriage itself?
As an intimate partnership, something established by the Creator, rooted in a conjugal covenant of irrevocable personal consent. So partnership, divine grounding, and commitment.
And children.
Children are seen as central to that. Marriage and conjugal love are, by their nature, ordained toward the begetting and educating of children. Children are called the supreme gift of marriage.
It also talks about parents cooperating with God.
Yes, as cooperators with the love of God the Creator in bringing life into the world and raising children.
And there's a strong point about who decides family size, isn't there?
Very strong. It asserts that decisions about the number of children belong to the right judgment of the parents. Critically, it says this cannot in any way be left to the judgment of public authority. Parental autonomy there.
And this leads into its stance on life itself.
Extremely firm. From the moment of its conception, life must be guarded with the greatest care. It calls abortion and infanticide unspeakable crimes.
And that condemnation extends further.
It does. It condemns anything violating human dignity, any type of murder, genocide, abortion, euthanasia, or willful self-destruction, but also things like slavery, prostitution, the selling of women and children, a broad defense of human dignity at all stages and in all conditions. 3, building a humane world, economy, politics, and peace.
Okay, so from the person and the family, the focus widens. Human activity, work, the economy, politics. How do these build or maybe fail to build a humane world?
Right. It starts with the idea that we develop ourselves through work. Our activity shapes us. And it makes this crucial point, quote, "A man is more precious for what he is than for what he has." person over possessions.
That's a core value statement.
It really is.
Uh,
And it connects our activity back to a deeper purpose. It warns against seeing the world, temporal affairs, as totally independent from God.
what's the danger there?
The danger, as the document sees it, is thinking we can just use created things without any reference to the Creator. It
Yeah.
argues that ultimately, without the Creator, the creature would disappear. There's a dependence, a grounding needed.
Okay, let's talk economy. What's the purpose of economic life, according to Gaudium at Spes?
Simple and profound. Man is the source, the center, and the purpose of all economic and social life. Full stop.
So producing goods, services, that's good, but it's not the ultimate goal.
Exactly. Increasing production is good, rendering services is good, but the fundamental finality, the ultimate point, isn't profit or control. It's the service of man, and indeed of the whole man. Meeting human needs, fostering human flourishing.
That has big implications for economic justice, I imagine.
Huge. It insists economic development can't just be left to a few men or groups possessing too much economic power. Decisions need to be broader.
More democratic, in a sense.
You could say that. It calls for the largest possible number of people, and indeed nations, to have an active share in directing that development. Participation is key.
What about workers? Migrants.
Yeah, it specifically calls out the need to avoid discrimination in wages and conditions for migrant workers. Fair treatment.
And property. What's the view on private property?
Okay, this is fascinating. It upholds a right to private property, but it immediately adds a crucial qualification.
Which is?
That private property has a social quality. It's not absolute. It's based on this deeper principle, the common destination of earthly goods, meaning the earth and its resources are ultimately meant for everyone.
So private property is okay, but it carries responsibilities.
Precisely. It's not opposed to the right inherent in various forms of public property. And get this, it even talks about land reform, suggesting that large estates left idle just for profit might need to be redistributed to those who can actually cultivate them and make them fruitful for the community.
That's quite radical even today.
It's a strong application of that common destination principle.
Okay, shifting gears to politics. The document sees changes happening there too.
Yes, it notes profound changes and a growing, keener sense of human dignity. People want political systems that better protect personal rights.
Like freedom of assembly, speech.
Exactly. Free assembly, expression, the right to practice one's religion freely. These are seen as essential components of a just political order.
And political authority itself, does it have limits?
Absolutely. It must be exercised within the limits of the moral order and always aimed at the common good. Not the good of the rulers or a party, but the whole community.
What about bad political systems?
It condemns systems that hamper civic or religious freedom, that victimize people through greed or political crimes, or that misuse authority for selfish ends instead of serving the common good.
And the relationship between church and state.
Clear distinction. It affirms they are autonomous and independent from each other, separate spheres.
But they both serve people.
Right. They both, in their different ways, are devoted to the personal and social vocation of the same men. So, independent, but potentially cooperative in serving humanity.
Okay, finally, the big one, peace. The document sounds an alarm here, doesn't it?
It really does. It says the whole human family faces an hour of supreme crisis because of war, and especially then the nuclear threat.
How does it view modern warfare?
With extreme gravity. It condemns total war. And specifically, any act of war aimed indiscriminately at the destruction of entire cities of extensive areas along with their population is called a crime against God and man himself. Unambiguous.
What about the arms race?
Seen as an utterly treacherous trap for humanity, and one that hurts the poor most of all, diverting resources.
So, if total war and the arms race are out, how do we get to peace? What's the path?
Trust. It says peace must be born of mutual trust between nations. It can't be imposed just by the fear of weapons. Deterrence isn't true peace.
So, disarmament.
Yes, it calls for an end to the arms race and a true beginning of disarmament. But it goes deeper.
No, so?
It connects peace to justice. You have to root out the causes of war, injustice, the desire to dominate, contempt for people, even things like human envy, distrust, pride, and other egotistical passions.
So peace isn't just the absence of war, it's building something positive.
Exactly. It requires addressing those root causes. And it strongly advocates for international cooperation, international organizations, to work together on fostering peace and tackling global problems like hunger, poverty, the refugee crisis. Outro.
Wow. So stepping back, this deep dive into Gaudium et Spes really reveals a document that was incredibly perceptive about the modern world, wasn't it?
It really was, grappling with all those paradoxes of progress, holding up human dignity, the family, and constantly pushing towards justice and peace.
It doesn't feel just like a historical artifact. It feels like, well, a call to action, a challenge to make sure our progress, our technology, our economics align with our deeper moral and spiritual side.
I think that's right. And despite all the problems it diagnoses, the vision is ultimately, I'd say, hopeful. It asserts that humanity today increasingly moves towards civil, economic, and social unity. It sees potential for coming together,
And the church's role in that.
is to foster dialogue, foster unity. The idea is that through mutual esteem, reverence, and harmony, working with everyone of goodwill, a more just, more humane world can be built. It's a vision of collaborative hope.
And it leaves us with that really powerful thought, doesn't it? The future of humanity lies in the hands of those who are strong enough to provide coming generations with reasons for living and hoping.
That line really stays with you. It puts the responsibility squarely on us now.
It does.
So, maybe a final thought for you, our listener. Thinking about our world today, all its challenges, all its possibilities, how might you be part of providing those reasons? Reasons for living, reasons for hoping, in your own life, your family, your community. Something to think about.